Hi, Max.
Hello, Josh. How are you?
I'm good. I'm pumped to talk to you. I saw something that was shared of you through the Ben's Friends Instagram, and it kind of sent me back down an Instagram wormhole in a way. And I saw that we had chatted together 5 years ago. You had reached out because somebody had given you a pin of mine when I had my kind of like NPR NA pins that I was passing around, and you were 9 months without alcohol at that point. And it's wild to think about how much has probably changed for you, how much has changed for me in those 5 years. And I'm really just kind of pumped to dig in and learn a little bit more about you.
Oh, yeah, well, likewise, man. It feels like a lifetime ago. I looked through them too. I'm like, man, that was a long time ago. Like, I don't even feel. It's weird because I don't feel like the same guy. It's a lot has changed, which is really fun, and it's cool to
Well,
see. Like,
in that case, let's do a little bit of time travel then.
go
We'll go
ahead.
even beyond that point with that 9 months and walk me back as far as you like into your kind of like role within hospitality, how you came to find yourself here. And we'll eventually get to the point of that guy who made the decision to change.
Yeah, so hospitality was not my first choice, right? Like a lot of people that get into the industry have been in it since they were young. I was not that guy. I went to school to be a teacher, and I realized very quickly I hated it. So I stopped and went into sales, which led me to moving to Texas. I was a regional sales manager for a textiles company, and I also hated it. So when I was there, I'm like, this is just not for me. I was kind of out of my element. Texas is a weird place. I was in a weird spot because at that point in time, a lot of isolation. I'm working 14, 15-hour days. I'm driving 5, 6 hours a day. I'm coming home and I'm like, I don't know where to connect with anybody, but I could probably go to a bar. That felt like the most logical step for me at the time. So I spent a lot of time going out to bars and hanging out with people. And then I'm just like, dude, I'm just drunk all the time. And then my grandma and I were like super good friends. And she called me, it was, I can't remember, around Thanksgiving. And she said, like, I need you to know something. Like, sit down. I'm like, oh God. She's like, I have cancer. And I literally was like devastated because, no one wants to think that someone that helps raise you is not going to be around forever. So I immediately called my boss and told him I had to quit. I moved home, moved in with her, and then her condition worsened. I mean, she went from stage 1 to stage 4 in 3 months. And then 2 months after that, she passed away.
Wow.
And at the time, like I didn't really know how to cope with that, and that's where like I had no job. I mean, I had money because I made tons when I was in Texas, but I had no friends really like there. So I came home and I'm like, dude, what am I gonna do? And one of my friends is like, hey, I'm the GM of this restaurant, and I would love to hire you. And I was like, I don't want to do that. He's like, why? I'm like, bro, I don't want to work in a restaurant. It just doesn't feel like me. And he's like, just come in and apply. And I like was like, I was like, nah, not for me. Then about 2 months go by, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to do something because I'm not doing anything. And it was 2009, which is like not a great time to be working in a restaurant, period. But I had no money. So he convinced his general manager, his co-general manager, to hire me with no experience. I had none. I'm like, I don't belong. Everyone in there is like, these are veteran servers. I got people that worked there for 12 years. I have no experience. And she's like, why would I hire you? And I'm like, I don't know. But if you do, I'll be as good as anybody you got. And if I'm not in 3 months, I'll quit. You don't have to worry about me. I'm not going to make your life hell. You're doing me a favor. And within 4 months, I was a trainer. She was like, wow, you're really good at this. I'm like, mostly because I didn't want to screw it up for my friend. I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna let my buddy down who put himself on the line to get me a job. And I was there for about 5 years, and then one of my friends left, and she went to the Root in White Lake, which was Chef James Regato's restaurant. That's who I worked for the last 10 years of my life. I applied and got a job there, and then when he opened Maple Gray in Hazel Park, I was like front of the house employee number one that wasn't in leadership, and I was there for 10 years until I left in August to go to Echelon Kitchen and Bar. So it's weird. It's a weird, like from I didn't hit a restaurant until I'm 29. I'm about to be 45, and I've been in one for almost 16 years, which is like crazy. Because that if you had told me 18-year-old Max, hey, and when you're 45, you're gonna work at a restaurant, I would have said,
There's a kind of a point there I want to nail down a little bit. You were talking about, grief settling in a little bit and not
oh yeah,
necessarily knowing how to cope. That's already something tough to deal with, to kind of like walk around with, and then you introduce that to restaurant life. Was that
yep.
cataclysmic, or did those things kind of like figure themselves out?
No, it probably exacerbated it. You take someone who's, for myself included, going through an immense amount of grief, you put them around a bunch of people prone to self-destruction in an environment that makes that the norm. I was like, this feels perfect. I don't have to deal with anything. I make people happy all day. I go out and party with my friends all night. I wake up the next day and I do it again. So like you have a really great opportunity to kind of fast forward the dealing with emotions part. Because number one, I don't have time. Number two, to be fair, I don't want to do it. So I just didn't do it. I was like, this is way more fun to just go out and get hammered every night and hang out with people and like, hey, we had all these birthdays, we had anniversaries, we had first time people, we had people getting engaged. I'm like, why wouldn't we celebrate? Why would I deal with my own life? It's back then it seemed like this is like the perfect storm, you know?
Part of that starts to splinter, though. You start seeing through the cracks a little bit. What did that look like for you when I don't know, did you notice that it wouldn't be sustainable, or
The drinking or the living like that or both.
both?
It took me a long time, to be fair. Maybe a lot longer, maybe 11 years. Until I got sober, I don't think I realized. I mean, I had glimpses. Like, hey, what did you do yesterday? I'm like, I cannot tell you. I don't remember. I mean, like if if blacking out was an Olympic sport, I would be Michael Phelps. That's just how I drank. I'm a quick consumer, and when I get the feel goods, I want to feel really good. And then next thing you know, I don't. I got days, weeks, months, whole years I don't remember. So I think over time, I started to notice, man, like until I stopped though, and it's funny when I started to like slow down because COVID happened, and I was like, dude, how am I going to get through this? Because I got no connection then. Not only I can't connect to people because they're not allowing it, you know. So I'm going home. I'm drinking heavy. I'm not dealing with anything. I'm finding out in the morning that I'm making even poor life choices even alone. Like, and I find myself apologizing to people and having to go back and say like, man, I'm sorry I did that. Man, I don't remember doing that. And then people were like, yeah. So when I started slowing down, it's when I started to notice when I slowed down that people were like, I'm really happy you're not going so hard because it was really a lot. And I don't think that I ever realized how much it was hard for other people in active addiction. You know what I mean? Like, nor did I probably care.
Yeah, looking back on it now, in what ways was it hard?
I mean, watching someone that's your friend, like literally self harm in not an overt way for so long, or just being a general liability, like you can't take me out anywhere because as soon as I start drinking, it's like all bets are off. I go from this to like, let's burn this building down, like in a flash, So I think that's tough for people to see because if you're not an alcoholic, you don't drink like us. It's not the same thing. There's a certain level of recklessness that it takes and self-abandon that it takes in that state that I think is hard for people to watch, especially people that care about you. If it's your family, if it's your friends, if it's any kind of loved one, if it's your boss. You could have asked any of my bosses in the last 20 years, hey, do you think that guy had a drinking problem? And they would say, think. I know. It's very obvious, but not to me. It didn't seem that way. It didn't seem like it was a problem, but it most assuredly was.
Did anybody ever say anything?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I had friends being like, hey, man, if you want to hit an AA meeting, I'd love to take you. And I'm like, no, thank you. I don't go to those. I'm not going to go to those. Are you freaking crazy? It doesn't make any sense for me. I don't have a problem. But like it's until I stopped and I was like, damn, dude, that AA meeting that I should have gone to in 15 would have been a really freaking good idea. Hindsight's 2020. I'm sure you've been
You
there.
weren't ready
We've
to
all been
hear
there.
it.
No, and if you don't want it, like I tell anybody that wants to be sober, like, oh, I want to be sober. I'm like, do you? Because like I'll help you until I got nothing left, but you got to want it. Because like I wanted to be sober more than I wanted anything, because I understood finally that there's two ways out. I go to jail or I die. And luckily, I didn't have to do either of those things ever, which is, is a miracle, to be honest with
Do you remember the day you made the decision?
you. Yeah, man. I had been going to work, and my chef at the time was like, hey, man, my dad is like not good at a lot of stuff, but he's really great at being sober. You should give him a call. So I was like, I finally was just like, okay, I wonder. It was March 23rd, man, 2020, and I said, man, I'm gonna call this guy and just see. I said, hey, I think I have a problem, and he's like, well, tell me about your life. I'm talking to him, and he's like, now tell me about your drinking. And he like stopped me, and he's like, you're not wrong. You do have a problem. And he's like, and I'd love to help you, but again, you have to do what I say. You have to do the things that I tell you to do. You have to read the things that I tell you to read. You have to talk to the people that, I tell you to talk to. And like anybody that's freshly sober doesn't want to hear that. But I was like, what's the other choice? Do I just keep apologizing? Do I keep ruminating? Do I keep digging my life into a hole until I can't really go through it anymore? So this is during COVID when AA meetings were illegal. You could not go to a public place, and we were having bootleg meetings at his house. So I was literally driving to Garden City to go to his house to do garage meetings, masked up with like 10 people I'd never met. I mean, I'd be at work, we'd go on lunch, we'd have an hour break. I'm like, cool, I got a little bit, I would tell them I'm going to be a little bit late. And they're like, why? I'm like, I have to go somewhere. I never told anybody, and then eventually they're like, he's been gone for 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to AA meetings. So that was kind of the day that I decided to do it.
It kind of sounds like an oddly prescriptive approach. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody kind of lay it out like he did for you. There's definitely the kind of like drinking self that would want to kind of like have backlash against that, but it's really interesting to hear that you were, hearing that what could have been difficult for most, you took it and you're like, this is time. Was there things that were being said in those meetings that really resonated with you? Were there parts that you decided to share during that time that kind of like made your own message a little bit louder at that time?
I think, when my first sit down at a meeting, thankfully it was 10, 12 people. I didn't know any of them. But like optically, when you the first time most people go into an AA meeting, the first thing that they do is they look around and they're like, I do not belong here. Like I don't look like that guy. I don't look like that guy. I don't look like that woman. And then people start talking and you're like, yep, that's me. There's me again. There's me a third time. And by the time everyone had gone around, I was like literally crying because I was like, shit, man, like this is it. Like finally I don't feel so like alone. So I think it took me a while to like get good at sharing. And I don't think until I got my second sponsor, because my first sponsor, one of his prescriptive ideas was that I quit this industry. He's like, you can't be around booze. What are you, nuts? He's like, you're out of your mind. My second sponsor is he like runs a brewery. And his message was very different. He's like, no, you can do anything that you want as long as you don't drink. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to find new friends. You don't have to do, you can, but like, why implode your life? You've already done it. Your whole life was a giant implosion. You were setting up time bombs everywhere. And now if you just don't drink, you can do anything that you used to do, and probably better,
How did
which is pretty
that feel to hear?
relieving.
Yeah.
You know, I was not ready to quit because I love what I do. You know, it's like, why would I stop? You know, but that was still, don't get me wrong, that was still hard. And, you know, when I got sober, then I became a bar manager, right? I was a server before. I became a bar manager as a sober guy. That was like even scarier for most of my friends in AA were like, are you sure you're going to touch alcohol all day? And I was like, yeah, yeah. Because like, this is before I was even going to Ben's friends, where they're like, big preach is that like, you can do this. You can be in this industry. You can touch alcohol. You can be a bartender. You can be a sommelier. Like that's a thing. I was just like, dude, if I could do this and people see that I can do this, and like what a message that is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh man, I got to stop drinking. Cool. But like I can be a bartender and I can perform at a high level and I cannot touch alcohol even though I make thousands of drinks a month. That's like that was like the I mean, I kind of had I'm not going to lie, I was kind of pissed off about it. I had like a chip on my shoulder to prove to other people like, man, if I can do this, then literally any human being alive can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, that
But
was
that's still
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we shared in our note to each other, is we kind of had
Mhm.
both had that feeling of um is this something that I can stay in? And I think we both kind of like, dug our heels in and decided that we wanted to thrive in this space. And it's funny to think about, being in that mindset at that time, because when I had those feelings of I might need to leave this industry, it wasn't that I was like nervous, being surrounded by the bottles. I didn't like hear them calling to me like the Green Goblin mask or anything like that. My biggest fear, I was like, no one's going to take me seriously. It's like no one's
Yes.
going to allow me to advance. No one's going to let my story be told. It was so silly because that had never happened to anybody. I'd never seen it in context that would happen to somebody. But I also didn't see a lot of sober people at the time in the industry or sticking around or anything that had a story like mine at that time.
Yeah, true. It's not common. And honestly, that was the coolest thing about hearing about your story is I was like, dude, like, yeah, see, like this guy's awesome and he does it. So like, if you can do it, like, why not me? And I want people to look at me the same way and say like, oh, if he does it like every day, so if he can do it, why can't I do it? You know, it doesn't mean upending your entire life because you have a problem drinking. It just means you don't drink. That's it. You know, it's not as mysterious as it sounds to the first time alcoholic, you know?
Yeah. It's also wild that you went from server to, bar manager. Like, what did it take to step into that role? Like, what were you thinking at the time?
Well, I mean, the gentleman who was running our bar before is a guy named Paul Fradnick, and Paul is like I was always just so fascinated with how much knowledge he had and how much skill he had and how much like discipline he had when he was making drinks. I'm like, dude, this is like so I begged this guy, like, hey, will you show me how to do something? And he was like, no. I'm like, hey, we can I and just kept doing it. And finally he was like, okay, I'm gonna make it this syrup this day. Come in, I'll show you how to do it. You can help me. And I was like, sweet, finally. So then he started teaching me things, and accidentally one day it was my day off. He dropped a keg and rolled his ankle and had to go to the hospital. There's no other person that could bartend. So I get this call like, hey, we need you to fill in for Paul tonight. I'm like, you guys do know that I'm not a bartender, right? And they're like, you know his drinks. You have all his recipes. Like you've been practicing with him, so like you're all we have. And I remember that was probably one of like the biggest holy shit moments of my life when you step behind a bar that you are unfamiliar with
Yeah.
and the tickets just start pouring out, and I was just like, oh god, like what do I do? You know? And I only subbed for him, and then months later he left, and then they asked me if I wanted to be like the interim while they found somebody else. And then I think we all just figured out that I was actually not a terrible bartender, which is like, you know, it's a great accident to happen because I was like, dude, am I going to do this for a long time? Is this like a 2-week thing? Is this like a 3-week thing? And they brought other bartenders in to like stage. Like, is this guy any good? And they're like, no, you're still better than him. And I was like, whoa, sweet, sweet. I don't know how.
How did it feel to be kind of like, going through the motions of what a sober life could feel like and then excelling in that way?
Good and sometimes accidentally disingenuous. Like that's always the struggle is like I'm sober, so like I can have a better life. But the thing that I excel at allows people to be drunk. So it sometimes is that weird like separation of like at first I felt immense guilt. Because like I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm putting in a glass. I know what like I have an idea of what it tastes like. I watch someone drink it in 4 sips, so I know it's good. And then they have another one. Then they have another one. And I'm like, man, it was rough at first because I was like, dude. And I remember talking to my sponsor about it. I'm like, I feel like kind of a piece of shit. And he's like, no, you're not. He's like, the way other people drink isn't your problem. He's like, you just found a skill that you have that people can appreciate. And like, it doesn't have to be anything more than that. But it was difficult because, like I changed one thing about my life and got good at something that I thought I would never even be okay at. That's beauty,
I know I had moments like that too, where I was like, how do I sleep at night?
Right?
Knowing what I'm doing. And I always just kind of like thought about it. Because I got serious about it. When I decided to not leave the industry, I felt like I was already in a good spot. I was educating myself, but then like I really started to take it seriously. I was like, I want to learn everything that I can about this. So when somebody sits down, I'm not just an arm that pours a shot. I'm a face that can meet you with, what's on every bottle, why I selected these things, like why things are on the menu. Like we can talk about it. And
Yeah.
that just kind of like helped me through it. I was like, I'm educating myself so much on this thing that like I don't want to leave any blind spots to it.
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, like, if we're not going to taste it, we got to know everything else about it. The story is always the most important part of everything. Why is this cocktail this way? Why is this spirit this way? Why do these guys use, just juniper berries in their gin? And why do these guys are they putting cucumbers in there? Why would you do that? So like those little stories really became, I guess, like the map to like getting skills that otherwise I'd have to ascertain through consumption, which I just don't do. So I feel that really hard, man. That's like I agree. I'm like, I'm going to know everything about everything.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh God, now I know everything about everything and I still don't know anything. That's the
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Did you feel and do you feel supported in the places you've worked with your choice to be alcohol free? Or is it something you kind of like leave outside?
No, I feel very supported. I mean, like being at Maple Gray, all the people that were there knew that I was an alcoholic before I did, and they were all very welcoming and very like, I had a lot of how blessed to have like an incredible sommelier and a high level chef and sous chefs and other bartenders that have worked there or people that taste my drinks and be like too much acid or ooh, not enough this or that's way too strong. If you give that to somebody, that's like a hate crime. Don't do that. Like you got to like kind of like dial it in. And to have people I could trust, that's, and it's the same thing even now at Echelon, maybe even more so because they're like, we have a Ben's Friends meeting at the restaurant, So we started an Ann Arbor chapter. Chef Joe Van Wagner and Jen Danley and myself all run Echelon's. We have a meeting there every Wednesday, and it's Ann Arbor's first Ben's Friends meeting. And then I have multiple spirit-free cocktails on the menu, one of which we donate $1 to every sale to Ben's Friends.
That's awesome.
So like they're very like, we know you're sober, we know you love this. We know that if you keep doing this, like your life will be better. And my goal isn't even to help my life. At this point, now that I don't drink, my goal is to help anyone else. Like, because I want to be the one that I wish that I had, because if I had a friend who was sober when my life was in the shitter, I would be like, man, like how cool to have someone be like, hey dude, like, call me if you feel like your life's falling apart. If you want to stop drinking, I would love to help you.
Yeah.
I think everyone needs a friend like that. I mean, at least anyone who's got a problem needs a friend like that, in my opinion.
Does your sobriety feel different now than it did 5 years ago? Did it feel like you kind of like settled into yourself a little bit more, or is it something you kind of like reevaluate every year?
I mean, I think I reevaluate it every day. You know, it always feels different. When I first started, I didn't know anything about anything in terms of feelings, in terms of emotions, in terms of stress, in terms of any of that stuff. So now I know how to, like, I have a better grasp. Before I could get happy and I could get angry and I could get sad. And that's pretty much it. You know, like those were like that was the scope. And it took me a long time in therapy to kind of learn how to like deal with emotions. I mean, luckily I have a great partner too who is always very welcoming to me dealing with emotions. And we've had to work a lot of, through it because I have 40 years of just, not dealing with emotions at all. That is the big thing. I drank mostly not to feel.
Yeah.
Or to feel good. And that's it. And now it's like I have the whole full range of human emotion at my capabilities, and sometimes that's what I have to learn how to evaluate. What is this emotion? Like, what am I feeling? Is this frustration? Is this grief? Is this anger? Is this sadness? There's a big spectrum of things. I just didn't have the tools to understand before. And when a feeling got too big, I just drank it away. So that's usually where it comes from. I always say that like drinking wasn't necessarily the problem. It was the solution to my lack of understanding of my own ability to feel.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a realization that, made me really emotional, is when I realized that I wasn't playing around with the dimmer switch just for the bad stuff. There was so much of me and my personality and things that I like really like now that I realized that I also had turned basically off for myself and others. I kind of kept myself in the dark just because I thought I was helping myself.
Yeah, it feels that way, right? It feels so like, oh man, I'm doing myself such a service to not feel these things, because like, why would you want to feel anything but awesome? And it's like, well, newsflash, you're going to feel everything, so good luck.
It's also wild to look back on some of those thoughts and realizing that you were just making like a boogeyman for so many things.
Yeah.
Like I was more afraid of being afraid of things.
Yeah.
I was just creating these kind of like specters that weren't really at my door, but I was like drinking out of the fear of, well, what if they were, kind of thing. So when you're met with moments of grief or isolation and depression and stuff like that, like I didn't find myself like burying myself in it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's no less difficult to face those things. You still have to muster up the courage to be like, okay, this is something that I'm going to handle, or come to the realization that like, this is something that I cannot handle right now, but I'm still going to like try to identify it. I'm still going to try to name it. And then, it's something I can put on the coffee table. I'll look at it until I'm able to like walk it through. And sometimes it's one of those things that's just like, this thing might not have any end. This thing that I'm scared to deal with might be with me forever, but I just don't want it to feel as large as it is.
Yeah, well, also too, like naming things, that's great, because then at least for me, I can categorize them and see like, oh, okay, but I get it. Like I was always like the what if guy. Mm-hmm. But what if? Oh, but what if? But what if? And like stuck there, and then stuck back here. Only like, man, why did I do that? Why did I act this way? And then I miss right now. I always missed right now. Present. What does that even mean? I didn't even know, because it was always like, I screwed up. I'm a terrible human being. And then, oh God, what am I going to do in the future that's going to perpetuate this cycle? And the gap was just the now. Being present all the time. Was I grateful for? Couldn't tell you. Now, give me a sheet of paper. I could fill it up twice. Every hour. It's like I have so much gratitude in my life. Just number one, for being sober. Number two, for feeling. Number three, for the ability to be present. That makes my life so much better, man. Like it's like now I can just be in the now machine. That's what my sponsor calls it, the now machine. He's like, you're in the now machine. Stay in the now machine. I'm like, dude, I love that.
That's great. What parts of your personality started to shine through in some of those early days of sobriety, and how did you nourish that?
I think realizing that I was a lot more emotionally sensitive than I had ever realized, maybe since I was a kid. Like I think it's not just alcoholism. I think it's adulthood that sometimes pushes those things away. Like, oh man, like I feel like sad, or man, I'm like really feeling for somebody else. You have that like moment where you're like, man, I really care about this person, or man, I really feel for that person. So that energy was not there before. And that is also hard because when you're feeling everything right away, that was like, oh God. I think I just had to like lean into it. You know, service work in AA was like, that was a miracle because like I could literally go early to a meeting and make coffee. And then I've got like 30 alcoholics who are like, dude, thanks for the coffee. I'm like, holy crap, that feels so nice. Like I did something for somebody else instead of just for me. Because that was how it used to be, is like most people that know me, my lifetime, they would never categorize me as a selfish person in hard air quotations. But like alcoholics are selfish. Every motive we have is completely hidden to like, how does this benefit me? If I do X, what am I going to get? Or if you do something nice, you have to tell everybody else, oh my God, guess what I did? Guess what I did? It's like, no, you can just be nice. Also, boundaries. What the hell are even those? You get sober, you don't give them to people. So most of us just don't have them. So like I had to learn real quick. Like I would get really angry, really pissed at people. Like, and I'm like, why am I so pissed? And I remember my therapist saying like, that's your body telling you that like a boundary is like getting kind of pushed. Like the anger doesn't show up alone. It's like a secondary emotion. It needs a friend. And she's like, so find out which one of its friends it's bringing to the party. And if someone was slighting me or taking advantage of me or putting me down or making me feel bad, then I could feel for once that emotion come in. And that was really strong. I was telling a lot of people like, hey, you're messing with my boundaries. And they're like, what is that even? Why do you keep saying that? I'm like, I don't know. But my therapist said I should. So like I don't know. Like you're pissing me off and I don't know why. That was new. Because I'm like a classic people pleaser. For the first 40 years of my life, I wouldn't do a thing unless I knew it would make someone else happy. Drunk me doesn't give a shit. Sober me had to fix that. Like every time that I would have an episode or I'd go out and do something dumb, I'd have to apologize to somebody, feel terrible, and then overcorrect by being so nice and so X and so Y that they would obviously like forget about what I'd done.
Then wonder why you're exhausted.
Exactly. You can't, it's so much effort just to clean up, like, and then wondering why.
Yeah. And not to
Why
mention the
is
kind of like internal battle that you're in of keeping a good narrative of, trying to think the way that people are seeing you. Am I presenting in the right way? Am I walking the right line?
for sure. And that's hard because, I used to think that I needed everybody to like me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now I realize that like the way someone else views me or thinks about me is none of my problem. I can do things to mitigate that and help. But if someone doesn't like me or is dissatisfied with me, it doesn't mean I'm a bad person.
How did you find these tools, or how was this way of life illuminated to you? Because, if you're like me, you didn't get sober on one day and on the very next day, you're like, I need to develop some tools. Like,
No, this
I
is
kind of
like,
buried myself in the work, like actual like bartending work for a while. I was like, I'm just going to
mhm.
put my head down and like, bust my ass doing this stuff. And then everything
Yeah,
else kind of like slowly rolled out.
I think it's just listening, going to meetings and listening, connecting with people who have similar problems. Because I didn't think going into AA that would I have any friends there? No, I would see people, and then I would never talk to them outside of those rooms. Because why would you? I don't want to talk to these drunks. Except I am one of those drunks, and I found a ton of cool people that had a lot more life experience than I did, and sometimes not even life experience, just accidental wisdom. So being open to listen. There's so many cool people I know that, I've watched come into a room like, hood up, down like this, don't talk, and then now they're leading groups teaching people. And I'm like, that's the kind of people, like, sometimes I'm almost more gravitated to the people I know who are a bigger mess. Because when they right the ship, it's like, dude, how much can I learn from just like, dude, what were you thinking? Like, you did heroin every day for 10 years and you're still alive? Like, let's talk about how you got out of that. Because like, what? Like, I'm a pretty low bottom alcoholic. I know no collateral damage, no illegitimate children, no arrests, no drunk drivings, nothing. But people have deeper, deeper, darker bottoms than me. And it's like, dude, those are the people that I'm like, when they talk, I'm just like, I'm listening. Just like, what do you have to say? I need to be teachable because like I can't teach myself how to regulate my emotions at all. It's like, so I think that's all it was. It's just like I wanted to learn so that I didn't keep doing it again. Yeah. So like that's all it was. It's just like I'm listening to anybody who's talking
because you don't really keep track of all those days where you're like, man, I'm never drinking again.
No.
Just like racked with guilt in the morning. You're just like, but then 8 hours later, you're back at it.
You're back. And how many times have I said that?
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds. I had taken breaks. I had stopped drinking at one point for almost 3 years. But like, did I change the way I thought? Did I change the people I surrounded myself with? Did I change any of my actions? Did I meditate? Did I read the big book? Did I pray? Did I listen? No. I just didn't drink, so I'm sober. It's like, no, man. Sobriety's not just not drinking. It's like you have to change everything.
Yeah. That was a big realization for me, is that sobriety is the first door of infinite amounts of door.
Yeah, and you open it and you're like, I'm here. And it's like, no. It's like you see those videos of those people that are like in those accidental back rooms where they walk in, it's basically an office that just is endless. Yeah. That's sobriety. That's sobriety. It's like you're like, oh shit, am I done? It's like, no, you never graduate. This is like a college that you just joined, and you're like, you just keep going. And like, when am I going to graduate? Like, you aren't. But like, the good news is if you stay in college, you won't do anything else stupid. So it's like, okay, man. Or you will do stupid things, but you'll remember them.
Yeah.
So that's the hardest part. It's like, God, this is the fact that it never ends. That's the hardest part to explain to a newcomer. Like, when does it get better? Well, every day, but like you pretty much are stuck here for good.
Yeah.
I don't like to say that, but it's like
you're right though. It's tough to describe. Like, it can sound really daunting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like it's earlier for us to say right now because we've been in it for a short amount of time in the long run, but a while compared to our earlier selves. But it's like, how do you make that not sound daunting? Like, I found sobriety and running kind of at the same time, and like those are both things on paper where people are like, you do that for fun? Like, people reach out and they're like, hey, I'm interested in getting into running. Like, when is it good? And you're like,
never.
I don't know how to tell you this. It's not. It sucks until it doesn't.
I've never been able to get into it. I mean, I go to the gym, thank God, but I don't. Running for me like that. I watched a couple of your videos. I'm like, this man's just running. He's just running. Like, I don't run unless I'm in trouble or unless I like forgot something. I can't seem to find I don't know what it is. One day maybe I'll get there, but
yeah, who knows?
You never know.
Max, what do you love about yourself?
Man, I think my ability to be kind to others and to myself. That's new. That's the one. I think that's probably the skill I'm most proud of, because it took me a long time to realize that there's only one person alive who knows everything that I suck at, and it's me. So like, I'm real good at dialing up hey, you're a piece of shit letter to myself in my head. And I've had to really like work on finding kindness and forgiveness for my own self, even in little things. I think that's very important for me.
What does that forgiveness look like?
I think just always telling myself that I know that I could have done better, but at the time I was doing the best that I could. And it's just with other people too. I mean, sometimes it's really easy to get angry with somebody else and their choices. And it's like, well, maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just don't know. they're doing the best they can with what they have available. And finding grace for myself and other people, I think that's just where it starts. When I start to have those thoughts, I can say like, hey, like really, you're gonna do this right now? Like, say, and I mentally, and I learned this from a girl that I worked with. She used to say whenever we'd say something bad about ourselves, she would say, "You say 3 nice things about yourself right now." So I like hear her voice in my head, and I'm like, okay, here goes, and I say in my head just quietly, these are 3 things I like about myself. And then I'm like, okay, see, so my brain doesn't know the difference. You know, if I say bad things out loud about myself, even in jest, I'll start to believe them. And I never would have thought that drinking. Never. Not once.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to climb out of because I feel like my drinking self, like my default was the cynic,
Yes.
just like immediately.
Yeah. Just immediately. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm, like always. That's, and I think that's common for any of us. I think that's a really big, at least from what I've noticed. People are really, really good at putting themselves on a cross, and it's like there's no need for that.
Yeah.
That's the rest of the world's job. You know?
Max, this has been really great, man. Thanks so much for sharing your story.
Oh man, thank you for having me. Like I said, it's this is like a dream for me. I've always wanted to be on a show, so I'm super happy to like actually connect with you, and I appreciate you asking me such thoughtful things.